In doing so,
Right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Overview and Scrutiny Committee. For the benefit of those watching on our YouTube channel, members of the committee are present in the chamber, and these members will be voting on proposals this evening. Other members of the council who are also present in the chamber or participating via MS Teams can take part in any discussions, ask questions, but cannot vote. Your attention is drawn to agenda item 1, which sets out the guidance on how meetings will be conducted. Before we start with formal business, we will confirm attendance of voting members by doing a roll call. Over to you.
Before we do that, Chair, can I just draw attention to the fact that some cameras aren't working? So those observing on YouTube, it's audio only, unfortunately. We've got a few technical issues we've been unable to resolve. If you can just confirm that you're present when I call your name. Councillor Oakley.
Present.
Councillor Athol. Present. Councillor Tanner. Present. Councillor Bell. Present. We've had apologies from Councillor Bishop. Councillor Round is substituting. Councillor Brown.
Present.
Councillor Cannon.
Present.
Councillor Chapman.
Present.
Councillor Cope.
Present.
Councillor Hickmott.
Present.
Councillor Hood.
Present.
Councillor Hoskins.
Present.
We've had apologies from Councillor Hudson and she is substituted by Councillor Tunstall.
Present.
Councillor King.
Present.
We've had apologies from Councillor McDermott and he's substituted by Councillor Williams.
Present.
Councillor Palmer.
Present.
And we've had apologies from Councillor Thornywell, who is substituted by Councillor Dean.
Present.
And you have 17 voting members present, Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll go through the apologies for absence again so that we know who they are. Mike Taylor actually emailed me earlier giving his apologies.
I'm a member of the committee, Chair. We've had apologies from Councillor, get my list and I'll read it. Apologies from Councillor Bishop, Hudson, McDermott and Thornywell.
Thank you. And the list of substitute members.
Substitute members are confirmed as Councillor Tunstall, Councillor Williams, Councillor Dean and Councillor Roud.
Thank you. Right. Any declarations of interest for this meeting? No, deathly hush. Item 5, minutes. The minutes are attached at pages 13 to 20 of the meeting held on the 11th September 2025. Are they confirmed as a correct record? Right, so item 6, any executive decisions called in?
No decisions have been called in.
Thank you. Right, so I'm going to propose that there's a change to the running order of the meeting to enable the guest, Emma Wood from the Leisure Trust, to leave before the significant debate. So can I have a seconder for that proposal? Kim Tanner, thank you. And everyone agreed? Thank you. Okay, I'd like to invite Emma Wood to kick off with your presentation for the Leisure Trust. Thank you.
Share the assistant apologies. Share what's been happening within Tunbridge and Mourning Leisure Trust over the past year and our aspirations for the forthcoming years. A very brief background. I'm sure we're all aware of some of this, but just to recap, the trust was established, born from the local authority in 2013. Current 20-year contract running through to October 33. We're of course responsible to a board of trustees. We are a charitable trust consisting of 11 trustees, including 2 nominated councillors on that board. We manage on behalf of Tunbridge and Mourning Borough Council, Larkfield Leisure Centre, the Angel Centre, including bookings at the farm, Tunbridge Swimming Pool, including the tennis courts and the catering at the racecourse, Holtwood Golf Course, and the latter edition of Leybourne Lakes Country Park in 2021. As previously said, we are a charitable trust. We're not for profit. A little bit of a misnomer because we do need to make a profit. We do need to make a surplus to reinvest back into local services and facilities. And that's the difference with us as a trust. There's no shareholders involved. It's reinvested back into the business, particularly as Tunbridge and Mourning Leisure Trust. Our funds and our investments stay within the borough of Tunbridge and Mourning. We are an active member of Community Leisure, a members association that specialises in charitable trusts delivering public leisure and culture across the UK. We absolutely fully embrace the seriously social campaign that raises the awareness of the benefits of local leisure trusts. And those that have been in the facilities over the past couple of years will see the replacement boards in the entrance, where we try to emphasise the focus of being a leisure trust and the benefits of that and being seriously social by our achievements and our investments back into the local community. I'm not expecting you all to be able to particularly read that. So just in summary, our turnover in 24-25 was 10.5 million. Visits were just over 1.3 million. Interesting, we've had over 13 million visits since becoming a trust in 2013. 3,575 enrolled on swim schools. We're already seeing over 100 increase in that in the first half of this current year. Just under 280,000 casual swims, 50,000 rounds of golf, 4,775 health and fitness memberships. And again, already seen a 10% increase in growth of those in the first half of this year. Of 7,400 total memberships across all products and 4,800 priority cards. And they're the old leisure passes, just be rebranded in the past couple of years, focusing on discounted activities for the local residents. We have 500 total team members, ranging from casuals to full-time employees, and 45 volunteers last year that contributed just over 2,149 volunteer hours. We raise funds for our nominated charity, which now are appointed biannually. Last year it was Porchlights, primarily was the recipient of most of our charitable donations, and we've appointed Community Grow for our next charity for the next 2 years. And we've invested over the last 2 years £205,000 in facility enhancements across the portfolio, both independently and in conjunction with Tunbridge and Malling Borough Council, where we'll add additional funds to ensure that a project can be completed to a certain standard. This chart hopefully shows the growth in income. We've got the first year was a partial year, so that's why that's lower. And we've seen the firm foundations that are established over the first number of years as a trust. We can all understand why there was a significant drop in 2021. But what's fantastic to see is that the recovery and growth following return after COVID. We are now seeing that growth slightly plateau off. But what's equally as important now is actually we've recovered in addition to the position we were prior to COVID. And that trend is seen again in the next chart of participation, which is equally as important. Firm foundations, unfortunately a drop, and then an increase going through to 24-25. And the last column is where we are in the first 6 months of this current year. So on track again to exceed where we were in 24-25. We've produced this year our 3-year business plan for 2025-28 entitled Transformation. We have identified 2 core themes supported by 5 key priority areas, and these are supported by an annual service delivery plan that's reviewed quarterly to maintain momentum and to review the progress. And all areas are allocated to team members within the executive management team, dissipated down throughout the team as well and communicated. So our 2 core themes is commerciality and community, and they're supported by contract and financial stability, efficiency and effectiveness, the environment, customer journey, and community engagement. So the themes, it's commerciality. We are a charity, but we still need to be a going concern, facilitating reinvestment back into the community and supporting some of the less commercial elements of the service to encourage participation for all. That ties in very neatly with the next key focus and real expansion within our business of community. Absolutely committed to the community engagement and diversifying all the services we offer. We've rebranded our Team Active 150 to Active Communities within the last 12 months, both in and off sites, and we're working towards breaking down barriers to participation for all. Key priorities. Well, I'll just talk. We have contract and financial stability. So we're enhancing our financial reporting and data analysis, and that facilitates both proactive and reactive actions to be taken. We've continued with facility investment. Looking forward, we'll be investing in the wet change. That's a joint project between ourselves and the council. Enerva, which is the wellbeing studio, which is planned potentially for the new Angel Centre, but we're looking to bring that one forward to try and establish that for 2 years prior to the new facility being open. Future studios in Larkfield Leisure Centre, course improvements at the golf course, part funding the replacement of the carpet at all weather play area at the farm, and gym redecoration and relaunch at Larkfield Leisure Centre. It's important that we maintain momentum and the offer within our other facilities as well. We are looking at an enhanced commercial focus, but absolutely when appropriate. We're looking at external funding, and that's being actively sourced. We review our reserve strategy to make sure we maximise investment opportunities. We're entering future contract discussions with the council. We'll, of course, consider new but appropriate management contracts which do not detract us from our current portfolio. The key priorities also being community engagement. we have added additional resources to that team, and we're out to advert for an active communities manager at the moment to support the 2 key members of staff directly in that team and the volunteers currently in position. And that's to extend the programme both on and off the sites. We want to engage with hard to reach groups. We'll go out to them if they cannot get into the sites. We've reinvigorated the exercise referral scheme and currently have 59 on the scheme. This time last year we had 20. The conditions include, as you can see on the list, ranging from cardiac, cancer, respiratory, stress and depression. And our referral partners include local GPs, Tunbridge Cottage Hospital, Kim's, Maidstone and Tunbridge NHS, Kent Community Health Foundation, Sevenoaks and William Harvey Hospital, and University College Hospital in London. And it's not just about the gym. If someone is referred, the gym's not necessarily the right activity for everyone. So we offer swimming, referral circuits, cardiac rehab, walking netball, multi-activity sessions, which is great for dementia, and prime timers, sports and fitness. We are also delighted to launch our Talented Athlete scheme in April this year, and we're just taking applications for our 2nd year. We had nearly 40 applications from across the borough and selected 16 successful athletes. And what was great to see is not only do we have fantastic facilities in the borough, we've got some exceptional talents as well. We want to understand and further develop our social impact value reports. And what was exciting to see is that last year there was a 30% increase in participation from 23-24 to 24-25. The projection is to exceed that this year. Just a sample of some of the activities we have within our community programme. On the sites, there's beginners dance, mindful movement, swim for health, here come the girls, walking netball and football, and then going out into the community, chair tap and yoga, dance for fun, steady steps and community dance. I'll take this opportunity to also promote our health and wellbeing days that are planned for December, both at the Angel Centre and Larkfield Leisure Centre, free for all, where there'll be advice, health checks with specialists from within the medical world also attending, for MS specialists, respiratory and MSK physio teams and the Let's Quick smoking team. We'll also be having a soft launch of our new Active Health membership. And new coming in 2026, we've got a men's shed project in East Peckham, chair tennis in a local residential home and walking cricket in conjunction with Kent Cricket. Other priorities, in addition to the community engagement, also includes our customer journey. It must be a positive and supportive customer experience for all. That includes easy access, easy booking process, clear communications both on and off sites, staff knowledge and training resulting in exceptional customer service, and facility presentation and standards. For the environment, we tend to work largely with the larger scale projects in conjunction with Tunbridge and Malling Borough Council, but operationally with more light touch with the lighting control, building management systems, waste management and supply chain. Efficiency and effectiveness is also a focus. We've actually just spent 5 hours this afternoon as a management team all bringing forward a number of those to be considered to bring forward over the next couple of years. And we are literally turning the business on its head, shaking all processes and services and ensuring that we're delivering them in the most effective manner, whether that be the sales process, membership sales, direct debit collection, all admin functions, both on sites and at head office. We're going for a huge transformational IT project, which will aid innovation, data-driven results, and ultimately improve the customer service and potentially reduce costs as well. We're reviewing the establishment to ensure it's fit for purpose now and in the future. And that's been seen with the introduction of the business development manager, who does have a more commercial approach, but also is entirely responsible for the community team as well. It's not just about the income, it's fully about participation. So looking forward, on a high level, we want to continue and further enhance our positive collaborative partnership with Tunbridge and Malling Borough Council. An active involvement in the AC development and potential funding contribution to that development too. We want to continue investment in the rest of the portfolio to enhance service delivery, customer experience and retention. It's important we do look after the other sites as well. If possible and appropriate, we would look to portfolio extension, but as I said before, not to the detriment of our current offer. And we want to continue to embed cultural change and continuous development. And with successful achievement of all of those, we will be fit for the future.
Dennis King.
Thank you. Well, men in sheds, I'm in.
Good.
Right. So, no, my question really is the virtuous circle that you operate at the moment is with Tunbridge and Morling and within the territory of Tunbridge and Morling. The bit I'd like to understand is how that might change with what we're talking about later, which is the move to unitary. So, you know, how do you see that shaping up for the future? Thank you.
Be brutally honest at this point in time, I'm waiting to have some further information from the local authority to understand exactly how that would move us forward. We are in negotiations for potential contract extension for the whole portfolio, but we recognise we're not naive enough to think that won't potentially impact us in the future. So an honest answer is I don't know exactly how that will impact us at the moment. I would like to believe it was a great opportunity for us.
Thank you, Emma. Anna Cope.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Emma, for all that information. One thing I just wanted to raise that I've been hearing from people in my ward is the scarcity of football pitches. That it looks like there's a current shortfall of at least 4 full-sized football pitches for use. Teams aren't able to put themselves forward to join an FA league until they have guarantee that they have a pitch for next season. And I'm finding that it's often younger working class men who are now feeling that they're not able to access sport in a way that they would like to. And I know often they are a very difficult to reach audience in terms of health and well-being. And I just wonder, do we have plans going forward to try and bridge that gap to make sure that those people who want to exercise, who want to be doing the right thing, have the opportunity to do it? Because again, it's quite it's easier to pay for that than say joining a gym to join a football league. So I would hate to feel that people are not able to do the sport that they enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we'd work closely with the leisure team looking at the pitch strategy. We do have constraints at the farm with the grass pitches as to how many times we can actually play them. There is a huge demand. I very much hope there would be opportunities potentially with an all-weather play area there. Maybe we'd be able to be more creative with how we can take bookings. We're replacing the current all-weather pitches there in conjunction with the council as well, whilst appreciating that might not necessarily facilitate joining an FA team or a league. I think the key is working with the council. To be honest, I don't have additional grass pitches. We are creative as possible as we can be with the programming, but everybody wanting probably the pitches at the same time. I would encourage, if they're happy, I'm happy for my contact details to be given out, if they can make direct contact with us and we can see how we can be creative to get them exercising. Absolutely, it is a key area.
Thank you. Which is the best contact details to use?
I will send you my email address or telephone. I really don't mind, but I'll make sure I send you.
Thank you. I do really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob Cannon.
Yes, to something you said earlier in your report about volunteers. You have a quite impressive number of volunteers and volunteer hours. Can you perhaps just expand a little bit on where they come into play and whether those hours can be extended at all? Thank you.
Of course, largely our volunteers, there's a huge cohort at Leybourne Lakes and Country Park. We actually wouldn't be able to operate and manage the park without those dedicated volunteers. There's also volunteers at the golf club as well. We have volunteers within the community programme, Here Come the Girls, the running club, that's supported as well. And we're in debt to our volunteers because without them, we actually couldn't provide the significant number of services that we do.
Thank you. Kim Tanner.
Thanks, Emma. I think I saw on one of your slides that your income is reaching somewhere around 10 million. Can you tell me how much of that is eaten up in costs? I know that you reallocate to each of the facilities, but I just wondered if you knew. Perhaps you don't know off the top of your head, but just interested to know that. Thank you.
Sorry, before you answer that, the financial questions, if we're going to the finances, it might be better at another meeting. We're going to invite Emma back, I think, because this is just a quick run through, really. So, okay, if you can answer that without going into part 2, that'd be great. Thank you.
I'd welcome the opportunity to share more specifics. We have been able to deliver a surplus for a number of ongoing years, so our expenditure does not exceed our income. I think that's what at this point in time would be prepared to say. There are some fine margins, and it's becoming increasingly challenging with uncontrollable expenditure items like the national minimum wage, NI, utilities. You know, we've come out the storm from electricity and gas. We're now entering a water storm, it would appear. So there's some of the uncontrollables, but I'd welcome the opportunity to discuss with members in more detail when appropriate.
Thanks, Emma. Mark Hood.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm seeing what looks to me, I might be wrong, I normally am, a distinct departure from the previous kind of work that's done, because you seem to be doing stuff like the men's sheds in other people's buildings and this kind of thing. Walking, did I see walking cricket? And you got walking, obviously you got walking football. I'm familiar with. I'm not familiar with walking cricket. So this kind of new focus on outreach kind of work is really something I really support and would like to encourage. These things seem to me to focus on people who are probably men. I'm making an assumption there, aren't I? Of a certain age. What work's going on to look at teenagers and at places like our sports grounds where there's not a huge amount going on in terms of diversionary kind of activities and that kind of thing? Is there any focus on that? I would be interested. Thank you very much.
So specifically on the sports grounds with teenagers, at this point in time, we don't have anything scheduled, but can absolutely take that on board to look to expand. We're focusing at the moment with the Excel program, which actually is gym based within the facilities. We're looking to go out to deliver some of our programs directly within the schools as well, but we will add on to that how we can introduce additional sort of recreational activities on the sports pitches.
Thank you. I don't have any other speakers, so thank you very much, Emma. It was very remiss of me. I didn't start by introducing all the officers here, so and yourself. So it was Emma Wood, Chief Executive of the Leisure Trust, with Darren Lanes. Thank you. And I think that completes your part. So thank you very much. Right, well, perhaps officers would like to introduce themselves. I'm sorry it's so late, but starting with Jill.
Evening, everyone. Jill Fox, Corporate Policy and Communities Manager.
Evening, everyone. Jeremy Whitaker, Economic Development and Special Projects.
Good evening, everybody. Damien Roberts, Chief Executive.
Alison Paris, Principal Democratic Services Officer.
Oh, thank you very much. Right, now we'll go on to matters for recommendation to Cabinet, local government reorganisation, business case submission. Damien's going to introduce this briefly, and I'd just like to say that I'm happy to take any, or they're happy to take any questions about the whole area of this. It doesn't have to be confined to the papers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And just to say to start with that I'm joined by the leader of the council, who both of us have worked, as I think members know, very long and very hard on this journey together. And I think both of us are available to answer any questions, provide any feedback. You'll be relieved to know that I'm not proposing to do another presentation because you've already had the opportunity to share quite a lot of detail with you. And now you have a very thorough and comprehensive report in front of you. So I'm just really going to draw your attention to the highlights. The first thing is this is about what we need to do as a council to meet the requirements set by government to submit proposals by their deadline of the 28th of November. The report in front of you represents a significant piece of work, which I think would be fair to describe as rigorous and evidence-based. It's focused on a discussion that we've been having as a council for many, many months about the benefits of a West Kent geography for any future unitary council. That's us with Sevenoaks, Tunbridge Wells and Maidstone. And that really recognises, I think, the close working relationships and collaboration that existed for a number of years. And this proposal would be seen very much to build on that. The proposals in front of you also represent significant further independent evidence gathered and analysed by our strategic partner KPMG that absolutely underpins the value of the three unitary model and the West Kent geography I described before. And just to highlight the main reasons why the three unitary model performs significantly better than the other options that other councils are considering. Some other councils are considering. Firstly, and arguably the most important, is that the three unitary option is the most efficient and cost-effective model currently being considered across Kent. It is also the least disruptive of any of the multi-unitary options, and that's really important when you take into account that local government reorganisation on this scale, 2 million population, 14 councils, including a unitary council, is by its nature complex and has risks. And so the three unitary option certainly provides the most straightforward way of implementing the government's requirements. It's strongly aligned to the geography of our public sector partners. And this really does matter if we want councils to have maximum influence over the wider public service offer within our community. And I think a three unitary option not only matches the geography of our most important strategic partners, including health, but also enables us to build really strong, productive, collaborative relationships going forward. It preserves the identity of existing communities and importantly does not break borough boundaries. Breaking borough boundaries would increase significant additional risk, complexity and timescales, which are part of other councils' proposals, but this would preserve those boundaries and really build on building blocks that even the government recognises really important to any proposals. It also creates the best balance of population. Why does this matter? Well, we do aspire to have the benefits of devolution, the opportunity for more government money, more freedoms and flexibility. But if we create or try and create unitaries that have very different population sizes, and that creates an unevenness in the representation that those councils would have on that strategic body. And so when you look at options that other councils are looking at, actually the three unitary model provides the most balance, therefore greater fairness for the populations that would be encompassed by those three unitaries. It also scores highest on the government's criteria, significantly higher than all the other options that were considered. And it has consistently gained the highest level of support from councils across Kent. But there are other options being considered, but the three unitary model, which is the model that this council has supported from the beginning, continues to have the highest level of support across all councils. I think finally, and members will already be aware that one of the biggest challenges facing local government is the intense financial pressure that councils are under. And you'll be aware that many councils are in financial crisis, and some have crossed over that line and are in equivalent of, in the private sector, you would call bankruptcy. And so it's really important that any new structure in local government has the capacity to withstand financial shocks, that has the ability to operate with the benefits of economies of scale. And without doubt, the 3 unitary option that is presented in front of you gives local government the best possible chance of success in a very difficult financial. I think the final thing, maybe the final thing to say is that because of the scale of the Kent geography, I think the 3 unitary option also provides the least risky implementation program. It's going to be difficult to coordinate how we bring together services across 14 councils, disaggregating really large and complex services in the county like adult and children's social care. And the 3 unitary option provides the most straightforward and least risky option to get to the destination. And in a complex landscape with many challenges, there's a lot to be said for choosing a route that introduces fewer risks, gives us the best chances. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that introduction. Matt, would you like to, as leader and co-collaborator, would you like to comment on briefly on any of this?
Yeah, thank you, Anita. There isn't much to add to what Damien said, other than to thank him for his work. What Damien didn't mention is he's chaired the steering group in Kent over the last few months to get us to this point, and there's been an awful lot of work involved. The draft business case for our preferred option that we're presenting to members tonight, but also for all the options, are extremely thorough, and KPMG have done excellent work over the last few months in analysing all of the different metrics against the government criteria and against some of the criteria that we have suggested are important to local communities. It's clear, as Damien has pointed out, that the model that we put forward as our preference beforehand has come out very well through that process, and subsequently that's why the recommendation is as it is tonight. This isn't by any means the end of the process. We are instructed to put a submission to government by the end of this month, hence the agenda item this evening and then the agenda item at Cabinet next week. But what happens next is the government will then look at all of the submissions that are made, and then they will run a public consultation, not ours or KCC or Medway or any other council. The government run a consultation in the early part of next year ahead of a decision in the middle of next year. So we've kind of got to keep working throughout, because this is coming around the corner very quickly, and it's not that far away given the amount of work to do. So that's why this decision tonight that we take is incredibly important. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis King.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank you for giving us prior warning of the amount of reading involved, and you weren't wrong. I'd like to thank Damien and Matt for the amount of work that has gone into this whole exercise, which is reflected in the huge amount of information and the degree of analysis in the report. But it does lead one directly to come to the same conclusions. But the option 3A does give maximum alignment geographically, physically, financially, and allows us to compound all the strengths that we have. So it does seem to me an obvious thing to support that proposal. And I'd like to thank you again for the work you've done. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Wendy Palmer.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, having been through this several times now with Matt and Damien at several meetings, definitely think that this is the best option for us. What I want to ask is I don't know if anybody else knows, but some of the parishes have put together a piece to be submitted. Where would you see that being put into this? Is it criteria with the criteria 6, or where would you see that being fitted in?
Matt, would you like to?
So there's no template to fill in. The government haven't said here's a list of questions, you need to answer them in the census, as they've done before on questions around devolution and local government reorganisation. We are free essentially to put forward the best submission that we can. In relation to the parishes I think some of them are in your ward, Wendy, or your parish, that have come to us essentially with something that they wanted included in the submission. What I said to them was essentially go out and circulate it across all parishes in Tunbridge and Morley. If you get agreement that that's a collective statement on behalf of all the parishes, then by all means, I think we should include that within. Obviously, we will wait to see whether that's the case. It was a really interesting piece for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about here, in the sense of it discussed some of the opportunities, but also the challenges that parishes will face under local government reorganisation, both in terms of upscaling, because obviously the result of this is that the principal council will be much more distant than Tunbridge and Morley is parishes, but also what parishes feel that they will need and what perhaps the limit on the capacity of those smaller parishes in particular is, because actually whether it's option 3A or 4B or 4D or pick which one you want, and this is where I'm sort of veering slightly into a personal opinion, which I'm trying not to do, your principal council is going to be more remote from your parish. I don't necessarily think that's a particularly good thing, and I think it's absolutely right that the concerns of parishes are flagged at this point, which is why we'd be happy to include it as a part of the submission.
Thank you, Mark Hood.
Thank you very much. I wasn't expecting to be called so quickly. This subject matter is indeed massively complex, as our chief executive has said, and it's got huge risks. Firstly, I want to acknowledge the hard work of all of our officers who've poured a huge amount of time and effort into the proposal which is presented tonight. And I'd also like to congratulate all of the Kent councils for actually hanging together and actually using the same set of data. I think that's been a real achievement. I know there's been times where there's been big characters in some of the meetings, some of the leaders, the council leaders meetings. So my my congratulations goes out to you for keeping that together as well. I think the paper sums it up when it says it's crucial that the devolution and local government reorganisation are linked to structural reforms, that such structural reform unlocks powers, funding and flexibility needed to make decisions locally. And I think the West Kent proposal, I think it does work relatively well for the affluent councils in West Kent. We've already got the West Kent Partnership, and then you've got where we've worked for many years together, and then you've got the addition of Maidstone. And I'm not convinced, I never will be convinced that Maidstone's in West Kent. And obviously we've seen additional data drawn together. There's a survey from the Kent County Council, and they've looked at the connections between the component parts of the three unitary areas that have been identified, and that survey identifies that actually there are few real connections between Sevenoaks and Tunbridge Wells and Maidstone in this cluster of councils, but those kind of disconnections, if you like, pale into insignificance when you look at the picture elsewhere in these models, because the North Kent unitary, to be honest, looks a bit like a Frankenstein's monster of an authority. It's disconnected limbs strapped around the torso with the spine of the Medway estuary. I failed to see many connections between Gravesend and somewhere like Faversham, but that's what councils have been asked to come up with. They've been come up with solutions to an impossible problem. While I support the merging of two-tier councils to deliver economies of scale and to merge services, reduce the number of directors, I think there has to be some kind of safeguarding to ensure that democracy does remain local. Can I ask for the leader and officers to elaborate a little bit about how neighbourhood area committees are going to work so that localism can be preserved. I think the gravest danger posed by the proposal is the creation of an East Kent Council, because I think you've got an issue there where you can create a unitary council burdened by large debt and incapable of sustaining expenditure over on that side of the council, because they've got high costs for adult social care, high costs for children's services, and they've got, I don't know how the burden of the issues surrounding the gateway to Europe are going to be shared. I think if I'm not a big fan of this, if this is a suboptimal proposal, then it's 100 times better than the Kent County Council option, which is a single unitary for the whole of Kent, because that is the greatest single barrier to Kent being able to finally harness the powers and funding that come with devolution. I think the paper quite rightly takes the government to task because of the lack of specificity. That's the fact that we've seen the Surrey decision come forward, which has completely ignored any of the criteria. So the government's come up with a solution, which we've been told you have to meet all these different targets, and that's been ignored there. And I think you've got a system. The government seems to be pursuing local government reorganisation in Kent, but you haven't got the twin track strategy of having a strategic authority running alongside this. And I don't think it's sensible to have one without the other. I think, which is why I fundamentally disagree with it, because Kent's had a distinct identity since Roman times, and here we are within months of a Labour government, and they're going to slice up the entire county. The cost and the disruption of disaggregation isn't just going to be something that isn't going to be recouped for 8 years. It's going to cause huge disruption for the people of Kent. I think Kent needs its own bespoke devolution deal, and I've said it before. I think assembly status would allow us to do that. We're going to be dispensing with 126 years of doing things together as a county, and I think it's a massive shame. So I can't support the division of the county, which sets other parts of the county up to fail. And I think this whole system is fundamentally flawed and is going to fail the people we are meant to be representing. I think the county is stronger together, and I pray that the government actually runs out of time and money before they can implement any of this. So if I could just have some clarification about neighbourhood area committees, that would be great.
Thank you. I think Damien's going to start, and Matt, you can finish.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Hood. There was a lot in that, and I'm very pleased that I'll be trying to respond with the leader, because I think I don't think I would probably be able to cover all of that just on my own, but I will do my best. So maybe starting with devolution. I think there is absolutely a shared view that devolution is essential, and a frustration, I think, that we still do not have a timescale from government when devolution will be available. And I think because of that, there is a desire at every possible opportunity to press government, bring forward devolution at the same time as local government will. Because without it, we do not have the benefits of that wider strategic focus on that big geography. And most importantly, the residents across Kent will be missing out on the additional resources of government and the freedoms and flexibilities when all the areas around us will have those opportunities. So I think it would be fair to say that there's a strong feeling of gross unfairness about the situation. And I think anything that we can do individually and collectively lobby to bring forward devolution, I think would be very helpful. It is fair to say that local government structures at the moment are imperfect. They have challenges that we are all aware of. And I think that if you wanted to choose the lowest cost, least risky, most familiar option, we would probably want to keep things the way they were. But the government have been clear. They've been clear from the outset that they intend to make those changes, and they want to see unitary councils in every part of the country. And they are not going to accept any orphans. They're not going to accept councils not doing it. And so with that in mind, given that change and the parameters around that change have been set out, I think you're right that the 3 unitary option is the best, even if there are no perfect options. In terms of the question around affluent councils, I think it's fair to say that councils in West Kent, partly due to their proximity to London, and because they don't face some of the financial challenges that councils face, that coastal councils face, that you could describe the West Kent councils as generally more affluent. And I think that mattered a lot more in the past, but going forward, the government have been clear that funding is going to be aligned to need. And therefore, government funding going forward, starting with the fair funding review, but I suspect many other changes ahead, will see a rebalancing of funding directed to those councils that are facing the greatest need. I think it's also important, having worked in some of the most deprived councils in the country myself, that there is benefit in councils that are being brought together to have areas of kind of common challenge, common areas of complexity, common areas of sort of technical difficulty, rather than trying to spread that out kind of evenly and thinking that might be better. It is the case that those parts of the country that have particular challenges develop significant expertise in those areas, attract opportunities from government to pilot new ideas and access significant funding streams. And therefore, having a concentration of particular characteristics in particular geographies does not necessarily end up creating extra disadvantage. It actually means that those parts of the country are better equipped to deal with those challenges in a way that wouldn't be the case if they were distributed across a wider geography. And honestly, there isn't a solution, for example, for coastal councils or port authorities. It would make no sense to have a council in the furthest part of West Kent matched with a council in East Kent. I think the geography is the geography, and we have to make the most of it. In terms of area assemblies, ultimately, the question of area assemblies will be something for the new unitaries to determine. But I think what we've done in the 3A unit, the 3 unitary option, is reinforce the importance of building on the building blocks of borough boundaries and indeed parish boundaries, which some of the options don't respect. And so there is the possibility that area assemblies could again build on the borough boundaries and utilize existing relationships and existing ways of working. But I don't think we can have a fixed view about it. I think that will be ultimately for the new unitaries to determine. I just wanted to comment on the county councils model. It is a single unitary model, which as has been said, as Mark has said, is not compliant with the government criteria. But what's interesting is that their area assemblies perfectly mirror the 3 unitary option proposed here. And so there is clearly, even even in the context of a proposal that in many respects doesn't meet the government criteria, I think at least in that regard, it does reinforce the value and the case for the 3 unitary options presented here. Thank you.
Matt, want to add something?
Yeah, I'll start where Damien finished in terms of area assemblies and neighbourhood area committees, who are kind of linked. So the government a few months ago came out with an announcement that all of the new authorities would have to have area committees as part of their constitutional arrangements. Now, that's been taken by sort of some, including Kent County Council, to be, well, we need to draw these into our proposals. But actually, that's just speculation, really. It wasn't particularly helpful announcements. And the reason for that is because there was no guidance about whether area committees, neighbourhood area committees, would have any budgets or not. whether they would be made up of purely councillors elected for the unitary authority, whether there was any representation for parish councillors, whether there was any representation for any external body or representatives from the business community, etc., etc. So they've left all of that alone. You just know that you have to have neighbourhood area committees, and I think that was just a response to some of the criticism that they were getting, which is that these new authorities are going to be more remote than the existing authorities. Those authorities that are promoting options which have got area committees or area assemblies in are promoting something that's entirely unenforceable, because no council can bind the hands of its successor. Ultimately, and Damien's right in what he says about the Kent County Council model and that they're proposing free area assemblies, but the shadow authority and then the authority when it comes into being could turn around and say, actually, we'll have 12, we'll have 15, we'll have 5. And the fact that they've said 3 before is complete nonsense. Like, it's just, you may as well, I've seen their maps in which they draw the area assemblies. It's not worth the paper it's written on. And it's just entire rubbish, frankly. And I think it just needs to be treated as such, because at the end of the day, the one unitary model that the county council are proposing fails a lot of the government criteria anyway, the critical one being on representation. You're looking for a minimum figure of 500,000, which I think a number of us think is still very big, too big. They clearly think that 2 million is acceptable and to be the largest council in Europe. Just a couple of other things. Surrey was mentioned and the Surrey decision. I think what was interesting from the Surrey decision was that public sector alignment, which the government liked to talk about a lot, was particularly important in Surrey. We saw that in terms of what the government published, and although they said they're not setting a precedent there, that was a particularly interesting aspect of it for me. Obviously, with Surrey, they're going at a slightly different pace because of the financial problems in the districts in particular. But it's something that we're all looking at all the time, and I know Damien from his previous councils knows this inside out. The final thing I'd just say on the free unitary model, and particularly the North and the East Kent Authority, is what's particularly important for the East Kent Authority is that all of the port infrastructure will be in the same council. And that is a point that Folkestone and Hythe in particular have been very clear at making, because effectively all of the Channel Tunnel, Port of Dover and some of the inland border facilities, they effectively all fall in Dover, Folkestone and Hythe or Ashford at the moment. And there's a real case for having those 3 councils and obviously Canterbury and Thanet together, because then effectively you've got one council that will have the expertise to deal with all of the border matters. And obviously we know in that part of the world that's particularly important. And likewise, I mean, yes, North Kent is kind of this sort of long thin strip, but on the 4D model, it's even worse than that, because the boundary goes even closer and uses the M2 rather than the existing borough and district boundaries. And obviously the consequence is it makes that problem that Mark described even worse. So that's when you look at the North Kent and the East Kent and the West Kent authorities, you look at the government's criteria, actually you can make these authorities work. And in all of the meetings that I've had with Kent leaders, I've always used ourselves as an example. I'm sure David Fornywell would remind me if he was here tonight, but Tunbridge and Morlin wasn't necessarily an easy marriage back in the early 1970s. We see that in some of the tensions that we have between the needs of residents in the Tunbridge end of the borough and the needs of residents in the Morlin end of the borough. But I like to think, not just us, but our predecessors too, we've made a good council work very well for the last 50 odd years. So you can have councils that do have different economic focuses in particular and still run a good authority, and I think we're proof.
Thank you. Rob Cannon, were you wanting to speak?
I will just say a quick word. But personally, I've never supported unitary authorities. I think they're not something I can really live with, but we do, and so I think we have to be realistic about where we're going. And I think with we see what the government have chosen for Surrey, which is two unitary councils. I suspect they're going to perhaps rather follow that kind of model here in Kent. And so I think the 3A model is the only one really that gets anywhere near that criteria. So I would absolutely support the 3A model. Thank you.
Thank you. Trudy Dean.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to ask a sort of simple question. I'd like to understand a bit better how the letters from on the 28th of November pan out. Is this a situation where each authority puts in a letter and says this is our preference? Or is it a situation where, say, 4 authorities that are looking for the same outcome all write together, all sign the same letter? And if that is the case, how clear are we that all of the partners we're currently proposing still support this proposal?
Thank you, Councillor Dean. And this is an answer that the leader or I could give. I mean, the first thing to say is that each council is going through their own formal decision-making arrangements. So the correct answer would be that we will not know for sure until we get closer to the 28th of November. I think most councils, we were discussing this earlier, weren't we? Most councils are making their decisions next week. So that picture will become clear very quickly. But the councils that I described that would form West Kent, plus Folkestone and Hyde, have for some time consistently supported the 3A option. And I'm certainly very hopeful that we get to the end of the process and we still have those councils on board. But we have to wait for them to conclude their own decision-making processes, and we shouldn't prejudge it. You asked about what we might submit. So the requirement is that each council is required to submit a proposal that covers the whole geography of Kent and Medway. So we will certainly be doing that. But consistent with what we did previously, we will also be looking to submit a letter on behalf of those councils that support that option. So we will meet the government's requirement, and if those councils that support the 3A option are minded to, but it will be up, I think, in mainly for those leaders to decide to submit a joint letter, really promoting the case for them. I don't know if the leader wants to add anything.
Yes, I'll be fairly brief. I do not particularly think big is necessarily beautiful in any shape or form. I'm not over the moon with what's on the table, but we're going to have to swallow it, unfortunately. We do not want option 1A at any cost at all. I feel sorry for the officers to, be facing this, and I hope they're all reemployed, those that wish to be reemployed. My other point is I'm very pleased that Tunbridge is moving towards the town council. Every government ignores tier 3 councils. They don't take any notice of them. They think we're all alone coming along at a blooming hayrick, and they're not important enough to be taken any notice of. That allows parishes and towns to do much more, raise finances and provide services that won't necessarily be provided by this big council that we're going to end up with. So it's very, very important. So we mustn't lose sight of that.
Are there any more speakers? No, I've got a question about mayors. The mayor for the area. How does that work out?
We don't know. I mean, assuming you mean the actual, not the ceremonial mayor like Chris, but the actual mayor of Kent and Medway. So that's part of essentially the devolution programme. And we got told when we went in the priority programme that we've got to do local government reorganisation before we can unlock devolution in the government's words, which I think most of us at the time thought was strange, but that's the position it's in. The government haven't given a timeline for devolution, and something that I'm very keen that we do in the letter, and if anyone disagrees with this, please say, is that actually we're very specific about our ask from government that we should get devolution preferably at the same time, but if not, actually sort of cast iron guarantee that it's coming immediately afterwards, because when the government put their expression of interest out to upper tier authorities, so in our area, Kent and Medway, back in July 2024, they didn't ask about local government reorganisation, they only asked about devolution, and then from there, essentially introduced the concept of local government reorganisation. So it's something that we need to push for, it's something that we need to keep on the table as quickly as possible. And I think today we heard the announcement that all police and crime commissioners would be abolished in April 2028. Now that would align with the timeline for local government reorganisation and what the government are saying at the moment, which I think is an indication that the government are quite serious about this, whether we like it or not. And I agree with others who've said that they don't like it, but I think that's more why it's more pressing that we get in place our elected mayor sooner rather than later, and the powers and the money and the funding that is associated with that. What was interesting in the announcement about police and crime commissioners was they explained how it would happen where you've got a mayor in place by then, so the priority programme areas, places like Sussex and Hampshire and Essex. But what they didn't do, what they also did was for those areas that don't have devolution by then, which was a real worry, and they effectively that the councils would have some of that power, albeit they're not sort of very clear about how structurally that would work at the moment. So we need to press government on that particular point, because the critical thing here is unlocking the powers, the money that's associated with devolution. And to do that, you have to have an elected mayor. Personally, I'm not sure about an elected mayor for Kent and Medway, but as you can probably tell, Anita, I'm being pragmatic about this because this is a government that's told us very clearly what it wants to happen. So you may as well engage with the process rather than just sit in a corner.
Very much. Damien, did you want to comment?
Just maybe a couple of things from a slightly different angle. First thing is, so we're talking about mayors with executive power, and primarily they'll be exercising those powers over functions and activities that have been passed down to the government. It won't necessarily be functions and activities that we're responsible for here, but I wouldn't rule out that possibility over time. The question is, who sits alongside the mayor? Because in a council, you have elected councillors, but the government's been clear that they're not proposing to elect any other councillors to the strategic authority. It'll just be the mayor. So who works alongside the mayor as elected officials? Well, it will be representatives from the new unitary council. They will have a role partly to hold the mayor to account, but also to provide oversight of the technical responsibilities or professional responsibilities that fall within their remit. So it's a very different arrangement to the one we have now. The question then probably arises, well, do the new unitaries have mayors? And the answer is, to the best of my knowledge, ceremonial mayors will continue, and each of the new unitaries will have the opportunity to have mayors going forward, but they'll be ceremonial mayors, with the executive mayor being at the strategic authority. Thank you.
Thank you. So no more comments, questions? Okay. So I'm going to propose that the comments of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the draft proposals for local government reorganisation be noted, and based on the evidence set out on the business case Annex 3, the 3-unitary model, option 3A, be submitted to the government by the deadline of 28th of November 2025 as the Borough Council's preferred option for local government reorganisation. Can I have a seconder for that? All right, give it 2 seconders. Is everyone in agreement? Good.
Sorry, I know we just sort of did that. I thought we were just noting this. I didn't realise we were agreeing. You know, I thought we were just noting this to go to cabinet.
Oh, I'm not happy with that then. I only want to note it. Sorry.
Okay. Right, so option 1 is agreed, and Mark Hood.
So yes, sorry, I'm sorry about this. Just seeking clarification. Why? I'm not quite sure what's happening here. So I thought we were going to have I thought this was a cabinet decision, and so I would have thought that if this was a full a council decision or recommendation, it would have come to full council, and that would have been the process. I don't think overview and scrutiny is a representative body to make a decision like this. I'm happy to win. I'm happy to win. Yeah, please do.
This evening is making a recommendation to be considered by cabinet on Tuesday. So next Tuesday, cabinet will consider the views that you've just expressed and this recommendation that you're putting forward, see whether they support that. And so cabinet will be making the decision on Tuesday.
If I may, I'm not sure that there's consensus in the committee to support. I think there's a huge amount of reticence about the whole process. I wouldn't have said that there's an agreement that we support one, but this model.
Do you think?
I think vote's inappropriate.
But would you agree with this going forward to government as our proposal? I mean, I thought you'd spoken in favour.
I think it's right because of the way that the council's structured, that this is a cabinet decision and that the cabinet should make the decision. Absolutely, it should hear the debate and listen to the debate and maybe be informed by individual comments, but it is for the cabinet to decide.
Does everyone else agree that it should be the cabinet? Well, it is the cabinet, but Matt, you're going to sort this.
So it's an executive decision under the way our constitution is. So as Alison's explained, that means it's a cabinet decision. So the final decision is taken by cabinet at the meeting on Tuesday. Overview and Scrutiny Committee tonight can effectively choose what its recommendation is to cabinet. It can choose to just note the paper. It can choose to note the paper and effectively, as Anita said, confirm that it would recommend that cabinet takes option 3A as the preferred option on the business case, or it could do something completely different. That's down to you. But that's effectively is the process.
Thank you. Anna Cope.
Oh, thank you, Chair, and thanks for clarifying, Matt. I do not feel comfortable recommending an option to cabinet. I am happy to note this. If we are looking at it being an executive decision, then I think that executive needs to make the decision. If we want the input of wider members, then I think full council would have been the place for that. I understand with the time constraints that that's not an option from here. So I am uncomfortable with recommending it, and I would like to put forward a motion that members of Overview and Scrutiny have noted this. Thank you.
Yes, we've already got.
No, but I didn't agree, and as soon as it was moving fast. I'm sorry, that moved so quickly that when I was trying to object to general agreement to that, there was no time to do it. It was like, are we moving to this? Okay, brilliant. Okay, off we go next. And I'm sorry, but I don't feel comfortable with that. And I really do not feel we have had an opportunity to express whether or not we want to recommend this to cabinet.
Okay, so it's under the heading of matters for recommendation to cabinet, and the comments at 1, the comments of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the draft proposals for local government reorganisation be noted. The second part, I think we can leave. Or if Alison thinks we should, we could have a recorded vote. But I understand. No, okay, well, that's fine. We'll only go ahead with the number one, which is the comments of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the draft proposals for local government reorganisation be noted. Does everyone agree with that? No, we've got, hold on, we've got more dissenters.
But Lisa, the second part says, and it's a recommendation that this is the option that's put forward, and you read that out, and I seconded it. So let's take
let's have
a vote.
Vote on it.
Yeah.
Where does it say?
Sorry. Can I? Sorry, Chair. On the recommendation at 3 on page 23, the recommendation I have read the agenda. It says the members are invited to consider the draft submission that has been produced using available evidence to meet the government's deadline of the 28th of November, and to provide any comments. And that's the recommendation, and that's what we've done. We've provided comment. The leader has been here to listen to what we've said, and he can be not informed, but you know, can take that on board. I think it's clear, and I think we've been kind of led down an avenue we weren't expecting to go down with this.
Sorry, there is confusion. I'm confused. But we have got a proposer, and I was the proposer, and Dennis was the seconder. We can have not a recorded vote, but we could have a show of hands, and I think that would be the way forward. And then if you don't want to agree it, no, you don't agree with that.
On clarification, sorry, I know we're not allowed to have a recorded vote, but if we can have our vote against recorded in the minutes. Thank you very much, Alison.
Vote.
Can you just remind me who's voting against so I can make a note and put it in?
Okay. After the vote, perhaps you could put your hand up and say if you want it recorded. I'll give you time to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, I can also, just while members are considering their choice, just remind you of the government's requirement, which is we do not have an option not to submit an option. The government have been very clear, so.
It's option 2, recommendation 2, and well, it's the one I read out. So I'll read it out again slowly so you can take it down. Right. Off we go. Option 2. Based on the evidence set out in the business case, Annex 3, the 3 unitary model, option 3A, be submitted to the government by the deadline of 28th November 2025 as the Borough Council's preferred option for local government reorganisation. Okay, are there any queries on that? No, good.
Can I just clarify that
Yes.
it would be a recommendation to the cabinet?
Yes.
Thank you, because you did say those words. Okay.
It's a recommendation to the cabinet. Thank you. Alison, over to you. Yeah.
Right, we're going to do a show of hands. So if you're in favour of that recommendation, can you please indicate? If, hands down, please. If you are against the recommendation, can you please indicate? Yes, that's 17. Anybody wanting their vote recorded in the minutes? That's 3. That's councillors Athol, Cope and Good. Thank you.
Can I just ask, are we going to vote on the actual recommendation in the paper now or not? That supersedes the one in the documentation that we got. So we're not voting on that. Okay. Strange. Okay.
Just to clarify, and I hope that I've got it right. I understand that the first recommendation was agreed, which was you were noting the proposals, and then the second one you have now agreed. I don't think there are any more recommendations considered.
I'm going to move on to the next item for recommendation to Cabinet, which is the annual service delivery plan for 2025-26, quarter 2. And I'll ask Jill to speak to this one, or Jeremy.
Thank you, Chair. So this is our hopefully more straightforward, this report, but it's our progress so far up to quarter 2. So taking us to the end of September, and this is our milestones in the annual service delivery plan for 25-26, as well as our key performance indicators. So all of the detail is in the annex to the report, but if you look at section 5, there's a summary table which provides an overview of the key activities for the annual service delivery plan, and you can see there that there's some very good progress made so far at the quarter 2 stage, with the majority rated as green, but there are some ambers and there are some reds as well. So I don't propose to go through all of the highlights that have been noted in 5.3, but there's numerous areas of good progress that have already met the targets that were set. And then further down, there's also some activities that were red rated that have been highlighted. And I think, as stated in the report, these were due to delays from central government. So there was not really much they could do at that stage. Section 6 is the same again. There's a summary table showing the KPIs. And again, very good progress has been made so far, with the majority green rate. So in the annex, there's more detail with the symbol showing whether it's an improving trend, static trend, or worsening trend. And there's some happy faces, sad faces as well to make that clear. So yes, so hopefully all of the details there. I think we're making very good progress. We're on track to complete things as we progress towards the end.
Does anyone want to comment on? Lee.
Just 2 really quick ones. Just looking on page 255, the one about, sorry, just get the right words, completely right words, 001, which is amount of CO2 emitted through council assets and activities. I think that's one that we don't, do we only get that once a year? I think perhaps that's right. But obviously we can see that we're not on target for that one. And I just wondered what mitigation there might be for that, and how we can perhaps get a bit better at seeing a trend rather than just seeing it once a year. And then the other one, which I'm sure you'll agree with me, is the number of empty properties in the borough, unfurnished and unlived in for more than 6 months. It's going, in the wrong direction and quite significantly higher than our target. And I just wondered what we were doing about that.
Just on the carbon audit data, which is where we've got the red rating there. So you're right, that comes annually. It's a sort of national standard, so the data is for the year. We report that to Communities and Environment Scrutiny Select Committee in June usually, so that went. I think that there is a summary in the report. There was some underreporting of a gas meter at Tunbridge Pool, I believe, which we think has been happening for a number of years. So that's now put the data, the latest data is, we believe, accurate, but it unfortunately, because of the previous underreporting, it's thrown it off, which is apparently, I've spoken to our new climate officer who's got more experience with these things, is not uncommon. Data collecting on this scale is sort of relatively new for us and the people, all of our contractors that we're asking to provide this data. And I did question whether it was something we could retrospectively go back but we can't. We've got those figures for the preceding, and that's what we have to work with. So going forward, we hope that for next year that it will start to go the way we want it. I don't think I'm in a position to comment on it, but we can certainly.
But we do have a report on that coming to committee soon. Good.
023 affordable housing. It's got, is that another yearly one, and that's why it's got not applicable there, because obviously it would be really useful to be able to see how that's progressing through the year. But if that target is a yearly target, that's just the way it is. That's just the way that is it a yearly target, and that's why. Yeah, it is. Okay, thank you.
Tim first, I think.
Thank you, Chair. On page 263, it mentions that the income target for the castle is £95,000 for the year. And I understand, you know, in Q1, the castle was closed for quite some time, I believe. So income was significantly down on what we were expecting. But we still have 2 quarters to go. So looking at the last quarter's income, it would seem to me that we are on track to make that target, to reach that target. I just wonder why it's rated in red. Thank you.
I think that's a good point, Councillor. It's really because it's less than 10%, within less than 10% of the target if it was prorated. But I take the point that because it's been closed since up until the 3rd of August, that it is making good progress now, and potentially in Q3 change colour.
Thank you. Anna Cope.
Thanks, Chair. I was looking at 024. The number of households made a successful private rented sector offer has remained at 0 for Q2. And though that's challenging, I do wonder what has resulted in the optimism that there will be some offers made in Q3 and Q4. Thank you. Sorry, is that one for the same report that's going to the Housing Committee? Thanks.
Yes, we can get it included. Oh, thank you.
Chair, if I could just add a little bit of detail. So this is an important, but it's a challenging. It's challenging because the rents in the private sector have grown significantly and have grown beyond what could be funded through housing benefit. Makes it particularly challenging. The Housing Service has recently recruited an officer that has particular expertise in this area, and therefore they are hopeful that we will be able to unlock this provision in a way that we haven't been before. So we're still determined to see progress, but I don't know at this stage whether that target will be delivered by year end.
Thank you, Damien. Any more questions? Thank you very much. Producing a fun report. And we'll go on to item 10, which is our outside body update, West Kent Integrated Care Partnership elected members forum, and Councillor Kim Tanner is our member and is going to give us a brief resume of what happens on it. Thank you.
Might not be too brief. Give me that back. For the last 4.5 years, I've represented TNBC both at the Kent-wide Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee, but also at the West Kent Health Integrated Care Partnership meetings. And I think this is the first time I've had a chance to tell you what I've learned there. So I'm really grateful to be able to share with you what is actually going on health-wise around us. It's really timely as well because I've been to both of those committee meetings quite recently. So just to give you a bit of background, in previous years, there's been several large initiatives that have been going on that you wouldn't know about, but actually as a health authority, we've got quite a lot of money. And so there is a new diagnostic centre that's been set up in Maidstone. There's the introduction of robotic surgery locally, which is phenomenal. There's also been the acquisition of the Fordcombe Private Hospital in Tunbridge Wells, which it is a great acquisition for the NHS, and they took that over from October 24. So another facility for all of us. On the negative side, there were a lot of maternity issues, but mainly in East Kent, and the Overview and Scrutiny Committee actually scrutinised what was going on there and what they intended to do to make things better. And they had to come to our meeting and explain themselves, quite frankly. And it was a poor service that was being provided a couple of years ago, but hopefully that is now improving slowly, but it is slowly. So as we stand at the moment, everyone across the country is discussing the government's 10-year plan for the NHS. West Streeting brought it in pretty much straight away when Labour came into government. And the idea of this is to deliver better services, but at 50% of the cost. So the health budget for Kent has gone down from £73.5 million to £38.3 million. It's a tall order and would probably seem impossible, but I have to say, I think there are some cost-cutting exercises that could be successful. Over the last 4.5 years, it's been quite obvious that the NHS has sort of lost its way. And I think this could actually force them to refocus on where they're putting their concentration. Just an example of this is currently they're planning to abandon the Kent and Medway Integrated Care Board and the Integrated Care Partnership to form the Kent and Medway Integrated Care System. Now, you might ask, really, what is the point of the effort and the expense of doing that? Only time will tell whether it makes a difference. But that is just an example of the waste of effort that would appear to be going on. So the 10-year plan is first and foremost to reduce the workforce, and this is the first time that this has ever happened in the NHS. I did ask lots of questions about this, and thankfully it is mainly admin staff that are going to be made redundant. I have to say, at a lot of the meetings I've been to, the talk has been all about collecting data, inputting into spreadsheets, interrogating spreadsheets. And whilst you do need this information, there was very little talk about actually providing a frontline service. So it will be interesting to see if they can still deliver to make people better and provide a good health service without so many spreadsheets and data collections. So reduce the workforce, they're also planning to provide more local hubs, which will be open for longer. You may have heard this on the news, but this is supposedly to ease the pressures that are on hospitals. So there's going to be local practices with a single practice would take up to 50,000 patients, and the plan is for a multi-practice to take 200,000 patients. So these are big numbers, and how it pans out, we can only guess that, really. The government are also looking to integrate the health teams more in line with local authorities. And we already have our One New team that provides great support to our GPs. They get referrals from GPs for people that want to lose weight, stop smoking. They might have mental health issues because they've got financial troubles, and so they would then be signposted. And this team that we have here at TNBC provide a brilliant service. I have to say, my own doctor suggested that I go and see them to help me lose weight. And whilst that's quite daunting, and I did decline, at least we know the system's working. As you might guess, there's even more reliance on pharmacies, and thankfully they're looking to improve access to NHS dentistry. It's pretty much impossible if you're not already on the NHS dentist list to get in there. So hopefully that will improve and provide dentistry for more people going forward. They're still talking, they've been talking about this for years, but they still want a single system to provide patient records, so that anywhere in the country your health records can be accessed. If you fall ill while you're on holiday in Scotland, the doctor up there will be able to access your records. It is a really problematic system to put in place because it's so huge, but that they're confident that they can do it. And following on from that, they want to embrace the digital arena by pushing the NHS app. Most of us probably have it, but not everybody does, and not everybody is able to have it. Not everybody's got a smartphone, so they're looking at that. And also the use of AI, where they're going to allow AI to listen to consultations and write up the notes for them. So who knows? We can only wait and see if it works. They also want faster diagnosis for mental health issues. I think it's recognised that it's taking far too long to get to see anybody if you're suffering with mental health. And the huge focus is going to be on preventative care rather than cure after the event. So their vision is all about communication and engagement. Departments are going to be working together more closely. They're introducing what they're calling the digital front door, which is providing healthcare at home wherever possible and keeping people out of hospital. And they told me that 3% of the population take up 59% of the budget. So if they can keep people at home, I would assume that will go quite some way to helping that situation. They're going to pay GPs differently, as we were talking about different areas, different neighbourhoods and demographics that are more costly. GPs are going to be paid in accordance with their area and the age of the patients that they have. And so, I should just say there's quite a lot of scepticism from GPs and hospitals with regard to all of these plans, but I think there is room for improvement, and we can only hope that things get better, because our health service is really, really struggling at the moment. But I'll keep you informed. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for that report. Has anyone got any questions? Anna Cope.
Sorry, I'm full of questions this evening. Thanks for that, Kim. I really like the optimistic tone for it. That was quite nice to hear. Can I just ask, was there anything specific about the NHS providing better mental health services in schools? Because I know originally that had been looked at because CAMS is not fit for purpose at the moment. And there's, as I know only too well, a mental health epidemic in young people at the moment. And as you said, it takes too long. And by the time they're treated, it's gone from being something that could potentially be solved to a chronic condition. So I'd be really interested to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It was recognised that young people are in great need, but this is all this has been thrown at them, and they're in a state of panic really with trying to bring it all together. And it was more of a general statement, but hopefully by the next time we go to a meeting, we'll know a bit more on what they plan to do.
Thank you, Trudy.
Thank you, Chairman. One of the functions of the ICB up until now, and I suppose still, is to liaise with local GPs over their provision for the future during the preparation of local plans. So the data collection that Kim was referring to, I hope, is informing that work. But as you know, there is a lot of concern locally that the GP provision has not been good. And I would love Kim to make some inquiries at the ICB to just be sure, so that we can be sure that with the huge budget slash that they've had in the administrative staff, that they're still going to be able to focus on that very important job that they have to do to enable GPs to be able to expand and to deal with the hugely increased numbers that we're going to have over the next 25, 30 years in this area.
And I'd just like to know how often this body meets and how long their meetings go on for.
It varies. It did decline a bit over the last year or so, but it has really picked up now. And the Overview and Scrutiny Committee seem to be meeting every couple of months, which is far more than it did before. And the West Kent group get together. It has been about twice a year, but it looks like they may be getting together more often. I've been asked for dates of when I'm available, and it looks like they're trying to make that more often as well. So I'll keep you posted on that.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you for your report. Very good. Any other questions? No. Okay, we'll go on to item 11. Is the record of decisions taken by the executive. Has anyone got any comments? There's some quite amazing decisions at the local regulation stuff. No? Okay, agenda item 12, notice of forthcoming key decisions. Any comments on those? Mark Hood.
Thank you very much. I think because cabinet meeting on the 18th, is it? So yeah. So the meeting of the called Finance Regeneration Property Scrutiny Select Committee has made way for it. That meeting's been cancelled. So that meeting we were expecting a review of charges to come to that, and normally that car parking charges would be one of those things. And I know that the leader had told us that there was going to be an opportunity for review of the changes to the car parking charges that were brought in last year, and the Green Group had some recommendations to make some amendment. We wanted to propose some amendments to Sunday charging in Tunbridge, so that we would have a fixed rate for that, and that we were going to request that we were going to ask for the administration to consider 2 Saturdays of free parking in the run up to Christmas as well. But obviously we haven't had the opportunity to do that, and I'm unclear which cabinet member is in charge of parking at the moment.
Matt.
Martin Coffin is responsible for parking. So obviously while he recovers from his injuries, I'm looking after that. Parking charges are normally considered by the Communities and Environment Scrutiny Select Committee. We're not proposing to change any car parking charges, so it wasn't on their report earlier this month. Obviously, all of these fees and charges get bundled up effectively, put into the budget, which comes to your next meeting in January, then goes to Cabinet in February and full council thereafter.
Do I have to? Is there a window of opportunity for us to request those measures that you consider 2 Saturdays worth of free parking because we've got a situation, because we don't get the benefit of an hour's free parking as the rest of the borough do. We get half an hour in Tunbridge. We thought that this would be a good way of balancing it up, but we were hoping that we didn't realise. I certainly thought that it was covered by the other Scrutiny Select Committee. Otherwise, we would have brought it up at that other meeting.
No, so the Communities and Environment covers all of the fees and charges that are effectively within their remit, and all parking matters have gone to that Scrutiny Select Committee before. Obviously, that meeting has happened. If you want to drop me an email with your precise proposal on, I'm very happy to get that costed up. Obviously, if any changes are to be proposed, such as what you've just described, and I appreciate that's just a verbal summary, then obviously the budget would have to be balanced from elsewhere, and that's what Overview and Scrutiny Committee discusses at its next meeting. But to help you in terms of whether you want to recommend that at the next meeting of this committee, we can work with you and the parking and the finance team to essentially see how much this would cost.
Thank you for that. Okay, go on to 13, which is the work programme. Anyone got anything to add to the work programme? We've got the budget coming up at the next meeting. Right. Everyone happy with that? Okay. 14, there are no urgent items. 15, there's no private items. I declare the meeting closed at 9:15, 9:16. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Good night, all.
Good night, everyone.